The House has laid out the next steps in its impeachment inquiry, and now they're inviting President Trump himself to participate. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. One thing we know about Trump is that his brain is basically a toxic waste dump with a bunch of trash, debris just floating around in there. And apparently one particular piece of brain litter that got lodged in his skull recently is an insane and completely nonsensical idea that there are people out there who want to change the name of Thanksgiving, an idea he barfed up at one of his group therapy sessions in Florida last night.
As we gather together for Thanksgiving, you know, some people want to change the name Thanksgiving. They don't want to use the term Thanksgiving. And that was true also with Christmas, but now everybody's using Christmas again. Remember I said that? But now we're going to have to do a little work on Thanksgiving. People have different ideas why it shouldn't be called Thanksgiving, but everybody in this room I know loves the name Thanksgiving, and we're not changing it.
We could change it to what the are you talking about? Because nobody wants to change the name of Thanksgiving. You see, as the impeachment inquiry intensifies and Trump keeps losing, he and his allies on Fox News have to keep inventing insane new paranoid conspiracy theories to whip up their base and keep them in line. I mean, first it was war on Christmas, now it's Thanksgiving. What's next? The Democrats don't want to use the term Halloween, folks. They want to change it to All Gorge Day. We're not gonna let it. We're not gonna let it. We're not gonna let it. Now, you will not be surprised to learn that this dumb idea, like most of Trump's dumb ideas, originated on Fox News. In fact, at one point, Fox literally aired a segment with a giant graphic that said the words, "War on Thanksgiving." There is no war on Thanksgiving. The only war on Thanksgiving is the war between sane people and racist uncles who think there's a war on Thanksgiving. And then after that war, you have to have a second war between cousins fighting over the last bottle of red wine. And then just to fully illustrate the life cycle of an insane right-wing conspiracy theory, the war on Thanksgiving idea traveled from Fox News to Trump's brain and then back to Fox News. This morning, Fox and Friends aired a clip of Trump's comments and then puzzled over where it could have possibly come from.
I don't think there's a huge push to change the name of Thanksgiving, is there?
Well, you know, I think it was in 2015, there was a rumor that Barack Obama wanted to change the name of Thanksgiving, but that was debunked.
They actually did it. They found a way to tie it back to Barack Obama. I'm shocked they didn't find a way to include Hillary Clinton, too. In fact, I heard a rumor that one of Hillary's missing emails had the subject line, "Secret plan to rename Thanksgiving." So, I don't know. It's hard to tell. Trump is grasping at straws and spreading ridiculous lies because the impeachment inquiry that threatens his presidency is intensifying and moving into the next phase. Remember, we just had 2 weeks of public hearings that featured one witness after another testifying that there was, in fact, a corrupt quid pro quo with Ukraine. We already have all the evidence. Remember how they had to arrest Al Capone for tax evasion because they couldn't get him on the other crimes? Well, this is the exact opposite of that. The president actually has committed tax evasion, and everyone's like, oh, forget, we don't have time for that. The guy tried to get 2 countries to interfere in our elections. He paid off a porn star, and from the look of Rudy's face, he judo-chopped his own lawyer's ballsack. And now, the House is laying out its next steps for impeachment inquiry, starting with a hearing scheduled for next week in the House Judiciary Committee, which will be responsible for drafting articles of impeachment against the president, which means a vote on those articles could come by the end of the year.
While Congress remains on Thanksgiving break, Democrats are already preparing for a busy December in the impeachment inquiry. Once lawmakers return, it is the House Judiciary Committee that will take center stage. Chairman Jerry Nadler writing that on December 4th, the panel will hold its first hearing in the probe to, quote, discuss the historical and constitutional basis of impeachment.
December will be filled with public hearings and a likely vote in the House Judiciary Committee before a full vote to impeach on the House floor, which could come before Christmas Day.
Wow, Trump could actually be impeached in time for Christmas. I mean, in a way, it's the one promise he's actually kept, because remember, he did say,
You'll be saying Merry Christmas again.
See, he was right. Oh. Now, in announcing this next step, the House also invited Trump and his lawyers to participate in the impeachment process, but in doing so, they laid out what would seem like a pretty obvious rule. House Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler wrote to Trump, "I am hopeful that you and your counsel will opt to participate in the committee's hearings, consistent with the rules of decorum and with the solemn nature before us." It's amazing that they even had to tell the president to adhere to the rules of decorum. But it's like how you have one wedding invitation for all of your guests and then another one just for your druggy cousin. Now, a CNN poll this week found that 50% of Americans want Trump not just impeached, but removed from office. And the House's invitation to Trump comes after weeks of Trump complaining that he wasn't allowed to participate in the impeachment process. In fact, last week, in a rambling Fox News interview, he even said he would welcome a trial in the Senate, which would likely begin early next year.
Don't forget, there was no due process. You can't have lawyers. We couldn't have any witnesses.
Right.
We want to call the whistleblower. But you know who I want as the first witness? Because, frankly, I want a trial.
No, you do not want a trial. You wouldn't last more than 5 minutes on the stand without confessing. For one thing, your resting demeanor is, "You're damn right, I ordered the code red." So now that the impeachment inquiry is moving to its next phase, Trump is preparing his defense. For example, he's blocked several of his closest aides from testifying, aides who have been directly implicated in the scheme to extort Ukraine. In fact, at this very moment, Trump's White House is fighting in court to block those aides from testifying. But yesterday, Trump insisted he'd actually love to let them tell their side of the story.
Trump tweeted, "I would love to have Mike Pompeo, Rick Perry, Mick Mulvaney, and many others testify about the phony impeachment hoax."
Would you love for them to testify? He always goes so overboard and makes it clear that he's lying. That's like if your girlfriend said, "I'd love to stay in on a Friday night and watch you play video games." You'd be like, "Nuh-uh." So Trump's inner circle has been dragged into the impeachment process as well. Now, it's well established that America's greatest presidents have always succeeded in part by assembling great teams. FDR had his famous brain trust, Lincoln had his team of rivals, and Trump, of course, has his team of off-brand Mr. Potato Head dolls. I mean, look at these. Why do they all look like their eyes and ears have been drawn onto their heads? I mean, Stephen Miller looks like a snake just rose out of a basket. Devin Nunes looks like someone poked 2 holes in a brown paper bag. Rudy Giuliani looks like a face drawn on a kumquat. And now, Trump's inner circle is entangled in his criminal scheme to extort a foreign country to interfere in the 2020 election. For example, today, the New York Times reported that Giuliani, who's reportedly under criminal investigation for everything from money laundering to obstruction of justice to campaign finance violations, also pursued business in Ukraine while pushing for inquiries for Trump. And it wasn't just Rudy. 2 of Giuliani's henchmen, Lev Parnas and Igor Fruman, have already been indicted for their role in this scheme. You remember these 2 guys, the guys who look like characters from the Soviet version of Guess Who? Now, you might remember that these guys had at least 10 separate interactions with Trump. And they told associates that Trump had sent them on a secret mission to dig up dirt on Joe Biden in Ukraine. I'm sorry, but these are the guys you want on a secret mission? Yeah, I mean, they'll blend right in as long as the mission is to infiltrate a convention of Queens building supers. In fact, they specifically said they'd been given a special assignment by Trump, which they told people was some sort of James Bond mission. It's really great that Trump came up with a James Bond mission, and he assigned it to 2 guys who look like they'd immediately get thrown off a speedboat by James Bond. These guys look like the mugshots that would come up during one of Bond's briefings, you know, like at the beginning of the movie when M is going through a list of known suspects before they get to the main villain. It's like, Lev Parnas, arms dealer, eaten by a shark in the South Pacific. Igor Fruman, drug trafficker, accidentally electrocuted after putting his in a socket in Kyiv. That's the photo from before that happened. Well, now they've been arrested, one of them is basically begging to flip on Rudy and the president, and the House Intelligence Committee is reportedly already in possession of audio and video recordings and photographs provided to the committee by Lev Parnas. The material submitted to the committee includes audio, video, and photos that include Giuliani and Trump. That's right, they have audio and video recordings of Trump and Rudy. And let's just spare a thought for the congressional investigators who have to sit down and listen to recordings of Rudy Giuliani. I mean, these are investigators who probably clerked for judges and high-powered law firms, and they'll have to spend their holidays sifting through the ramblings of this lunatic.
Shut up, moron. Shut up.
Okay, hold on.
Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about.
Forget the whistleblower. We have the transcript of the call and the president's remarks.
Biden's going to take
Spartacus.
Biden? By the way, Biden's been off the trail.
He's our Al Gore.
All right, Rudy, hold that thought.
What thought is he going to hold? Also, You know you're crazy when you're already practicing breaking free from your straitjacket. You'll never hold me. You'll never hold me. But now, not only does the House have possession of these recordings, but they've also subpoenaed Lev and Igor, and Democratic Intelligence Chairman Adam Schiff said this week there's a chance they'll even be called to testify.
We have subpoenaed documents from Mr. Parnas. We've had discussions with the Southern District of New York. We have subpoenaed Mr. Parnas and Mr. Fruman for their records. We would like them to fully comply with those subpoenas. We may go beyond those documentary requests, but we first want to see the documents. And we have seen time and time again the importance of getting documents before witnesses testify. It would be nice to have those documents before we question people like the Secretary of State or question people like Mr. Parnas.
Can you imagine this guy testifying before Congress? He'd have to get special permission to wear a tie with his tracksuit. The House has laid out the next steps in the impeachment inquiry. A vote could come by the end of the year. And judging by the polls, if Trump does get impeached, Americans will be doing a lot of
Thanksgiving.
This has been a closer look.